Welcome, everyone. Let's just take a moment to settle into where we're sitting. Feel the contact with the furniture. And bring your attention to your breathing. And just feel the flow of air in and out. And as you bring a breath in, notice how it feels to be you from the inside today. Just acknowledging whatever comes. Also sensing the connection with the group. How it feels to be part of this group. And then when you're ready, bringing your awareness into the shared space with your eyes open.
Welcome, everybody. It was so difficult to decide how to plan this class this morning, because the subject of listening, as the subject of transference, and maybe all of our subjects, is so important and so broad, and there's so much to give you about it. This whole first module of our course is really a kind of introduction, and then as we go along, and I'm hoping that all of you will sort of stay with it, there will be more and more that of the depth that we'll go into about each of these subjects. But listening, GENDLIN'S says, is like watching the road. That therapy is a lot of other things. You need to know a lot of other things about driving beside watching the road. But if you're not watching the road, you're not going to get where you want to go. And I'm thinking that the watching the road is watching maybe there are 3 lanes in the road. There may be the lane of the I, the lane of the you, and the lane of the us. And we're sort of interweaving on these lanes as we're watching the road with listening. And we're going to be exploring a little bit of that this morning. I somehow don't like that metaphor of a 3-lane highway, because it sounds very, that's not the way therapy is. We don't go speeding along there to get to our destination. It's a very bad image, but somehow I couldn't get the 3. Steve is very good at this. I'm sure he'll come up with an image of the 3 different dimensions of watching the road. Maybe you're watching the weather, you're watching the signposts to know what state you're in. That seems important, and you're watching the road in front of you, something like that. But I do want to communicate that it has these 3 parts. I'm remembering as a young therapist, when I first had studied Jean's work, and I was giving workshops, some of them for a large group of people for a conference. And I remember I was so shy and unable to really communicate. And people in the audience were getting sort of restless. And somebody in the audience said, do a listening demonstration. That will really engage us. And so I did a listening demonstration with someone from the audience. It was in one of these large rooms. And just as this person said, everyone was totally engaged, and people immediately got what I was trying to communicate about focusing and listening. And it's magic. There's something that's absolutely magic about listening. And in our community empowerment project that some of you are engaged with, we're exploring how this kind of what I'm calling evocative listening is not only essential in therapy, but every aspect of life, including the social, political spheres of life, of group living, community living. So what to say about listening? And it occurred to me in the middle of the night, sometime this week, that the demo, I Can't Stand Reflection, is such a wonderful way of communicating so much about listening. And so I'm sorry you didn't get that way ahead of time. It just occurred to me. And since I'm not teaching you in a college that requires me to have the curriculum all set, I'm going to continue to sort of drive you crazy about reworking it all the time so that I can be freshly with you and with you, listening to you, listening to me, and to listening to our us as we go along. So evocative listening is the name that I really like. We can sometimes call it reflective listening, deep listening, responsive listening, embodied listening. There are so many names that we can give this kind of listening. But evocative listening, for me, has the poetry of it, and it also has the bringing out. Oh, and active listening, of course. Evocative is very active, right? It's bringing out the mystery of the other, the you, and the mystery of who we are together and who I am with you, all at the same time. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. As you know, I interweave the two traditions of focusing and relational psychoanalysis. And often these two families that I belong to are at odds. It's like this marriage where they've been divorced, and when they, are competitive with each other, and they don't get along with each other that well. They don't listen to each other that well. And I find myself wanting to invite both families here to this Thanksgiving of our seminar, and I can't leave either of them out because they're my mother's family and my father's family, and I am, so much the offspring of both of them. Now, in the GENDLIN family, listening means reflecting, and it sometimes means guiding, like, can you give that a minute? Can we slow down? Can you find that right there in your body? That kind of guiding, focusing sort of guiding, and all of the complexities of listening. And we're going to go through them very briefly this morning, some of them, the headlines of them. And questions and interpretations are usually frowned upon. In fact, Ann Weiser Cornell says, don't ever ask questions. I think it would be very hard for me to do therapy without asking any questions. Steve is nodding his head, right? It's the kind of questions that you ask. But I think all kinds of questions are needed at times. I usually want to ask more of the evocative questions rather than the fact questions when I can. But sometimes I need the fact questions. I need to know something in order to feel fully present there. Now, an interpretation is seen as, in the focusing community, is seen as sort of a hierarchical God's eye view of the unconscious that's presented to the client, really old style psychoanalysis. And in psychoanalysis, in relational psychoanalysis, reflecting is frowned upon. Oh, you're just parroting back what the person says. And that's very unsophisticated. And in the psychoanalytic world, and guiding is also frowned on in the psychoanalytic world, what's prized in the psychoanalytic world is questions and interpretations. Now, both of these, reflecting, guiding, questions, and interpretation, all four of these things can all be in the realm of evocative listening. They're all different ways of listening, of engaging, of finding the next thing, of going deeper. And I want to show you that with this little tiny clip. Thank you, Ray, by the way, for reminding me that I hadn't given you the part 2 of, that would have been a shame, because part 2 is the, is the juiciest part of that demo. So we're going to look at the very beginning of part 2 of that demo, I Can't Stand Reflection, and see how all of these are woven in for GENDLIN in his listening, in his watching the road, and in his driving the car, right? So let's just read the little poem just to set the stage for us to really listen to the listening, because I could just go right off. I want to just dive in and engage with you, but we want to have the right evocative, receptive, curious space, and a poem can often do that. So let's read the little poem that I gave you in the handout on making contact. I think you're going to read that for us, right, Jeffrey? Were you going to read that for us? Oh, Lisa was going to read that.
Yeah, okay. I was waiting for you to name the poem, so because there are a couple in there. So yes. I'm happy to. Yeah, I agree.
Yes.
Within the Body You Are Wearing by Robert Hall.
Right.
Within the body you are wearing now, inside the bones and beating in the heart, lives the one you have been searching for so long. But you must stop running away and shake hands. The meeting doesn't happen without your presence, your participation. The same one waiting for you there is moving in the trees, glistening on the water, growing in the grasses, and lurking in the shadows you create. You have nowhere to go. The marriage happened long ago. Behold your mate.
Yeah. Does anything come to you with that poem about listening? For me, it's about listening to yourself and listening to the other, listening to the universe within you, listening to the us. Is there anything that struck you about it?
For me, what comes is we find ourselves in all these places and situations. The glistening of the water, in the shadows, etc.
Mm-hmm. Right. So many dimensions that we're listening to.
And for me, it was the connection to consciousness, the universal mind, and the oneness, if we just let us experience all that is being experienced.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's all in the moment of interaction with our clients. Let's just have one more.
I heard the listing of all the various places that I didn't use that word, but the self or the one in there is. I heard it in two ways. I heard it one is you can never get away from who's being asked to be listened to, and if you can stop and in some kind of way make contact. So it was both. Then there's a something that can come. So I heard two things in there for me anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that, Steve. Right. Yeah. There is this sort of stopping to listen, in a sense, to behold your mate. Let's take a moment to sort of invite the felt sense of this, what I'm calling magic, this miracle of listening and being listened to. I love that quote that I put in this handout about where you are understood, you are at home. And we're making, in therapy, we're making a relational home. And that home that we're making, the foundation of it is built from this kind of evocative listening. Let's just go back and see if a moment arises for you where you felt really understood. The felt sense of sort of recognizing, oh, he or she gets it. I'm not alone. Doesn't have to be the most profound experience of being understood. It could be something very simple.
What I noticed was unexpected.
Just wait.
It's an us.
Just a second, Steve, because I
Okay.
have one more question first.
Okay,
Looking forward to hearing it.
sure.
See if there's a word or phrase that comes about the experience of this feeling gotten. just mark it down on a paper so you can go back to it. And then just see for a moment if there's an experience that arises of understanding, of listening, of getting it. That is it a different felt sense? Is it the same felt sense? What is that feeling of, oh, this is what the person means, or this is how they are, or this is, I get this. Wow. Or, oh, now we're on to it. Or, oh, I see. See if there's something that comes to you about that experience. Maybe you could find a name just for yourself of both experiences. Okay, and I'm hoping you'll go back to this, but we want to have that experience right there with us. The experience of the poem and the experience of our attunement and the experience of this reflection. So I want to invite you to share just a little bit because I want to get to our video that we're going to have more time to discuss. Liz, I'm so glad you're here with us. Good to see you. I just noticed that Liz was able to come and I wasn't sure she would be able to. So I want to ask you just to share not the experience of being listened to, but just the felt sense. And if the felt sense of getting it and being gotten were the same or different. And I'm going to come back to you, Steve. Again, not the story of it, but
Right.
just the felt sense of it.
2 words, and that was different. The first was us. And the second, the word that came to me was bingo.
I like that. Bingo. Vivian, do you know that what that is? Bingo. Yes, you do. Us, the being listened to, that suddenly when you're listened to, there's a real felt sense of an us. And that's sort of interesting because the person is listening to me, right? But there's an experience of us when I'm really listened to. And the bingo, like, got it. Anybody else?
I would say it's like a moment of amazing grace, both ways. Like,
Yes.
I was blind, but now I see, and somebody sees me, and I see someone else in that level of depth.
Yes. Wow. Amazing grace. I love that.
I would say together and possibilities.
Yes, yes, yes. That feeling suddenly like the us, together, we're together, and the feeling of the possibilities. Oh, this, something is going to happen. Something can happen. And Laura, you were going to say something?
Yeah, just because it was reflective of the first one. I didn't have words. I had an image. It was like a cool, clear, dark, reflective space we are both in that's being gotten. That's like the us, right?
Mhm.
And then like a sense of smooth gliding ease. That's
Mm.
the bingo.
Small, yes, gliding ease, right? Yep. I have one more.
Lisa's raising her hand.
Yes.
The felt sense of being gotten is, oh, thank you. And the getting, the other is, aha, got it.
Mhm. Yes, 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 yes. This thank you is such a relational feeling, isn't it? It's a thank you, and it's to the other, and it seems, at least to me, to be beyond the other, almost like a thank you universe, or thank you, or thank God, or thank, you know, a bigger thank you, and a thank you to the other. But it's a real felt sense. And the other one was, what was the-
Aha, got
aha,
it.
yes, oh, aha, like the
Aha.
right, right. There's something a lot similar with the words that you all are choosing. Okay, now some of you have been through Charlotte's class, and some of you are teaching trainings in focusing oriented therapy, and the skills of listening are very, very familiar to you. But I want us just to read some of the points of them, sort of distilled down so that they're here with us. And Jeffrey is going to read that.
Which handout are you reading from? I
think we're just going to read the beginning here about making contact.
Okay, I'm making
Evocative
contact.
listening,
Got it.
evoking the mystery of the other.
Thank you. Because there were a few.
Yeah.
handouts.
Yes. We're not ready for the video yet.
Yeah, and I have my handout printed out here. So I'm just going to read through these
Great.
8 points. Okay.
Great.
First one is open ourselves to the mystery of the other and the process of unfolding.
Right.
Look for what is.
I'll just say a little something about each one there.
Okay.
Just like when we were doing that attunement together, or with a client, I just take a moment to really look at the person, just to make that connection and open myself, almost as there's almost a ritual of getting ready for something that's going to happen. And that opening can be a conscious or not quite conscious step of readiness. Go ahead, Jeffrey.
Look for what is beneath the surface. Recognize the infinite complexity, the levels of meaning.
Yes. I love the idea that the complexity is infinite. So what might be absolutely true in 1 minute, the opposite thing can be true in the next minute, and there's no problem with that, because the complexity is infinite.
Look for openings, windows and doors to the larger, deeper point.
Right.
Find the secret message hidden in an unknown language. Notice the small steps of deepening and nuances of change. tune into the felt sense, the mood, the feeling tone of the interaction.
Mhm.
Celebrate the moments when the interaction takes flight.
Mhm. Yes, and that celebration might just be a breath or an acknowledgement or a look, that we have to notice it. Notice there is the small shift. So I'd love to hear anything. Again, these are not unfamiliar to you, these ideas, but anything that comes as we sort of remember them together. And I think we can put down whatever is on the screen between us. Yeah. Was there any of in reading those 8 reminders, were there any that sort of came new to you, like, oh yeah, or something that was missing that's important to you to acknowledge about the skills of deep listening? Yeah, Liz.
Unmute. Okay. I like the secret
Mm-hmm.
because it brings in the client also, secret maybe from the client too. And
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The that comes from something that Gene said about how the client may be writing his message in an unknown language on a little scrap of paper and invisible ink and throwing it into the ocean, and nobody could possibly get this message, but the therapist has to get this message. So the client may be saying, therapy costs too much money, and it's not worth it, and I have much better things to do, and I'd rather be with my dog, and the message is, pay more attention to me, or I need you, but nobody in the person's family or friends or anybody's going to get that message, but you have to get that message. Were there any others that you noticed or had something to say about?
Okay, I see something.
Of course.
I felt very touched with the opening. The moment that you say that you spend at the beginning to get in touch with the mystery.
Mm-hmm.
It is a moment, this beginning, that sometimes feels like people don't feel very safe and it's welcoming, and the moment of getting in contact and touching, like with eyes, is beautiful.
Yes.
And from the other side, I have, like, really in my body that we are in partnership with Grace smiling from the very beginning of our Charlotte's training. And this was very special for us, that we've been, like, from the very beginning celebrating these moments at the end, like sitting in silence and looking, and this is something that really I remember from yesterday.
Wonderful. Wonderful. I remember when I was first in my analysis with Laura, and I was really afraid of her as an analyst. I was afraid of the whole process. And the moments at the beginning of the session that were usually about the clothes we were wearing, or the weather, or the elevator, or something like that, were very precious, because even though the content was a kind of throwaway content, the meaning of it was really that we were opening to each other. We were settling. We were establishing our connection and doing it in those little ways. And I think it's so important for therapists to treasure those little friendlinesses that are so important. Anybody else?
I was also like Liz, hit by the finding the secret message hidden in the unknown language, and it brought me to an awareness of a particular client of mine in couples therapy, and I don't think that I've quite grasped the unknown language in his punchiness, both towards me and towards his partner verbally. And so it becomes it's a good reminder that there is a secret in there somewhere, and to not respond with my own punchiness.
Right. And the listening is what's between responding with your own punchiness, right? And being able to be interested, that kind of remembering something important is being communicated here. What is it? And when we can get that curiosity, then we don't react as instinctively, from our own sort of primary place.
I have just one word that happens when the client and I are more or less following that list, no matter what we're talking about, which can be quite heavy: laughter.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
a joyful energy, no matter what the issue is, how heavy it is. It's the recognition of a universal, oh, I understand, on both parts. And it releases wonderful life energy.
That's very, very true. Very true. Gene used to, every time he would yawn, he would say, "Thank you for the yawn." And those bodily things, the laughter, the tears, the yawn, the sigh, these are all so important. It's the whole organism responding, and then we respond instinctively to each other in those things.
So I just noticed that there's actually, it says find a secret massage. It doesn't say message. It just says,
I think that's probably, I probably dictated it.
No, but such the psychoanalyst here. It's but there it is. It's I haven't touched the right spot yet,
Yeah.
Right? We haven't hit around the right spot for you to touch the right spot for you to feel better yet. And we don't know, so I'm looking at this and I'm like, massage. Okay.
Yes.
I fixed it in the version on the website before I put it.
Oh, thank you.
Look at it on the website. It says message.
I thought it was.
I didn't even notice it.
I thought it was a reference to Marshall McLuhan.
Good. I'm glad you're all giving me the benefit of the doubt and finding deeper meanings in my mistakes. But I'm also very grateful that Jim just fixed it. Let's have one more. That we had that laughter that we were talking about, that Steve was talking about. It doesn't have to be from this list, but anything for you about listening.
I could say one thing. I always struggle over the years, actually, with people who always open the session by asking me how I am.
Mm. Mhm.
And it's like, how are you? And I really
Hate it.
kind of struggled with that a lot to know how to respond to that. And lately I've been much freer with myself, and I've been saying things like, well, I haven't fallen off the cliff yet. I'm still here, or, I've been just waiting for you, or something. It's somehow more personal in some way. And many times people laugh, and it really does open to that kind of settling you're talking about. And kind of, in the past, it would almost be annoying,
Instead of getting that, now you're sort of getting the message, oh, we need to make contact to establish
That's
this
right.
us.
I need something real from you, something.
Yeah, I need something real from you.
How you're situated in this world in some way,
Mhm. Who is the you that I'm getting today? And of course, the client gets a different me each time, right? And they need to know, what Lynn are they getting today?
Right. And is it a safe, coming from so much trauma that people come from, it's almost like, am I drunk today, or am I sober, or do I have a headache, or am I present? Who am I today? Like you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's just one of the meanings it can have, right? It can have the meaning of, oh, it's so selfish for me to take all this time with attention for me. Let me give attention to you first.
Right.
Or, there could be many messages in this unknown language, but
someone who always thanks me for the time at the end of the session. I never get that either exactly, because wait a minute, we're paying to be here, and we arranged to be here together. What do you mean? I want to say thank you for the time, but I'm still trying to feel into it. I don't really get it exactly.
I wonder if there could be the relational freedom, and that will be another of our subjects, is relational freedom, to ask what comes to mind about thanking me.
Yeah, I could, yes.
Gene was very conflicted his whole life about his parent tradition of Rogerian person-centered therapy, which he was always considered himself, a person-centered therapist, and reflecting as the basis of everything. And yet reflecting became popularized and became a very kind of mechanistic, you just say back what the person is saying. And Gene hated that, and would always say, well, when I'm talking about reflecting, I'm not talking about saying back the same words, right? I'm saying giving back the deeper point, the essence, the spirit, the mood, the Befindlichkeit, right, that you're receiving. And there were all these jokes. You probably heard the joke about the client says, and now I'm going to kill myself. And the therapist says, yes, you're going to kill yourself. And the client goes over to the window and says, I'm opening the window. And the therapist says, yeah, you're opening the window. And the client jumps out the window, and the therapist says, plop, or something like that. We used to have those jokes. Anyway, Gene was very concerned that reflecting, the whole idea of reflecting, could be either ludicrous or mechanistic. And this video is a wonderful example of some of the principles that Gene taught and how he embodied those principles. How is Gene embodying carrying your reactions forward inside yourself before responding to the client? Remember, he said, we talked about how in the experiential response, how he said, you don't just act out in therapy and give your first reaction, but it's important to really give your part of the interaction to the client, but you carry it forward in yourself a step and then give it. So we're going to see how he does that. And then his principle of it's not the doing, it's not what you're doing. It's not what you're saying, I'm sorry. It's not what you're saying, but it's what you're doing in the saying, that every saying is an action. You're doing something in the relationship. And what are you doing? Are you defending yourself? Are you getting more information? Are you trying to slow things down? What are you doing? What's the doing? And he uses as the example the therapist that says, you really have to be more assertive, and you have to go out there and you have to show people who you are. And the saying is, I want you to be assertive, but the doing is, even here, I'm one more person that you can't assert yourself with, and I'm telling you what to do. So we want to take a look at that principle of the doing in the saying. Making a relationship with the one in there. We've talked about a little bit today also that it's not just the ordinary everyday person who is speaking to you, but there's a one in there that may be speaking a different language that we want to make contact with and make a relationship with. And you may have two very different relationships with the one in there. And they may have very different relationships with you. Sometimes one can love you and one can hate you, or all the complexities in that. His principle of maximum contact and minimum intrusion. This is very prominent in this demo because the client is really allergic to intrusion, and she desperately wants contact. And so this is perfect for that principle. The principle of putting nothing between you and the client. The client here experiences the reflecting method as a something between. The watching the road that we've been talking about, and that transparency of really letting your own reactions and responses be seen by the client. You don't take them to your supervisor and hide them from your client, but you find a way to allow your client to respond to them and to make it part of the dialogue without it being an intrusive part of the dialogue. So those are the principles. Do you have any comments about the whole demo? How many of you saw the whole thing? Yeah. Can we have just a few comments about what you felt about this demo? I think it's a very unusual one, and I treasure it.
I just saw the first part, right?
Well, it was part 1 and part 2.
I only saw part 1.
Okay, well, we're taking it from the beginning of part 2, so you'll enjoy how it evolves here. It's very interesting psychoanalytically also, because the client here is a psychoanalyst, so it it evolves in a very interesting way. Anybody else? Just your responses.
I have a response.
Yeah.
But being reflected can also feel like being dismissed. Oh, you're just saying that. And this woman wanted a response where she felt somebody else was in the room
Mhm.
and connected to her. And
Yeah.
I totally identify with that because I have a history of feeling dismissed by people who were very smart and could pretend they heard what I was saying.
Yes. So you identified with the client there. Yeah. And I bet your one in there was going, rah, go for it. Don't let him get away with it. Anybody else? I think
I was glad that Jean was doing it because I realized, wow, it would have taken a lot of my energy to be there with her, with constantly be hearing, no, that's not it, that's not it, that's not it. That I could see through that, but a difficult person for me.
Yes, and you being taped.
Yeah.
Recorded, right? Right.
I have something, Lynn.
Yeah.
What struck me most about it, seeing it this time, was GENDLIN'S genuine interest. Genuine. There was a genuine, sincere interest in understanding exactly what she was saying and the nuances, because it was very nuanced. It seemed like there was a lot going on.
Yeah.
And he was really trying to get at exactly what was happening for her.
Yes. I think, Gray, you're very familiar with this idea of making a something. That what makes therapy, one of the things that makes therapy is that there's a something, what I call the thing that isn't a thing, right? There's a something that you're attending to together. And the first part of an interaction is finding what that is that we're opening up, that we're attending to. And sometimes finding a name for it, finding a way of expressing it, that we have to be together in looking at this. And the person, the client is not their issues. The client has their issues. And that's one of the things that is so wonderful about therapy, is the experience that I'm much bigger than my issues, my traits, my problems, my gifts, I'm bigger than that. And I have these. And what is that we're going to open up today? So he's very riveted on finding the something. What is the something that needs to be unfolded? And the something is from the one in there, right? The one in there, the client's client. This client is bringing her client, right? Her inner self. And what does that inner self need? And Steve would find her very difficult, and some people would. Jean didn't. I don't think that Jean was finding it difficult. I think he was enjoying the challenge, because she was giving him an opportunity to be what he wanted to be, which is non-mechanistic interaction first. I guess we should have that as a principle there in that list. Person. And anybody else?
Well, what struck me was how easily and quickly he would dismiss whatever he said that he realized got in the way of really listening to her.
Right. He did not get caught in the the who's right and who's wrong. And am I, it's interesting because he would say, that was good, right? Or that wasn't good, meaning he was very aware of wanting to be what she needed. And it could be good or bad, but he wasn't invested in himself, like that story that I think you've all heard of his working in the returns department of the department store and being exhausted when he would go home after, saying, oh no, this was a good, this is a very good make. Are you sure you want to take it back? And blah, blah, blah. And then realizing he didn't even like this department store and saying, yes, it's a piece of shit, let's return it. And that carried him through. I'm not being invested in the store, even when he's the store. And that's another principle we should put down here, that he so easily can be on its side against what she's against. And so many times when the client is against something in us, we're against that thing too. And we're against it being the thing that we're against how it's impacting on them, even if it's a thing in us that we might like under other circumstances.
This reflecting business feels to you like there's no person there, just a or something. That's not them. It's giving you back yours.
I'm not sure of this. I don't fully trust my own sense, but it's sort of an inkling that if you just parrot back, it's an intrusion. And I want to know there's a person.
So I don't know what to say now, but I like it. I take it in. I'm not going to repeat it, but I got it.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to know that I can trust you on that.
Okay, you can trust me to be here and not just to stay inside reflection. I don't know if you can trust me not to reflect because I do it so constantly that I might do it again, but I don't intend to.
That was different because you were reflecting, you were engaged, the me.
You could feel me in that.
I could feel you in there.
Because if you reflect back, then you're messing into my business in some sense. Whereas if I hear from you, that's you. Is it like that?
If I have something from you where I feel I exist for you, I've touched you, I've gotten to you, I feel more present.
Ah.
If I'm just getting my words, even though I trust you're feeling your way along to stay checking in on the attunement.
Then you're over there by yourself.
Yes, I'm
floating over there.
Yes.
I get it.
Yeah, okay, that's good.
I get it, and it's real interesting because it's the reverse of what I would have said, and yet I understand it very well.
Okay, well, I don't know what you would have said.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah. See, that gets me interested.
Oh.
See,
okay, well, I'll tell you afterwards.
But no, I like that, and
you meant by getting interested that it was a good thing I did.
Yes.
I didn't have to hear it this minute.
Again, I feel like I exist.
Sure, makes sense. You exist in the interaction. You
Yes.
exist by touching
Right.
me and seeing that you did.
How he was being I don't know if cautious is the right word, but very, very mindful of what he was saying, and even changing reflection into a question by saying, "Is that right?" You know, I noticed though at the end where we were watching the part we weren't going to watch, she let him get away with lots of reflections.
But that's really interesting, isn't it? You know, here I was trying to keep this just this 3 minutes, but then with our technological challenges, you got to hear how it developed so that when the relationship was established, she could let him get away with a lot of reflection. What do you make of that, Laura?
Well, that she felt she hadn't made an impact on him. She had made a connection. And so that there was a trust that he wasn't just blowing her off. Something like that.
Right.
I don't know what other people think.
Yeah.
For the first 3 minutes, I felt like I was trying to get my car into a very, very tight parking space, and that I had to pay very careful and not use the beeps that and the and the video in the car, but pay very careful attention not to hit anybody else. And can I really squeeze into, and then, okay, now that I'm in that, we're in that space, then what really needed to, then it unfolded because we were together in the same parking space.
Exactly. And so maybe it was the universe giving us that later part so we could see how it unfolded after we after they were really together. But Gene sort of had to prove himself in a way. What was the something that they were focusing on? He was trying to get at that at the beginning, right? He said, this reflection business, he's trying to get what's the crux of this thing that we're up against as a partnership here. Can anybody put it into words what that something was that they were trying to explore together?
Well, there was something about she really needed to know that she could make an impact on him, that he was there as a person and present, and that allowed her to feel present and connected.
Right. She needed to know that that she could make an impact on him, that she could touch him for her to feel present. Yes. Does anybody have anything else about that? If you saw it intersubjectively, that's one way of looking at it, as the you of the client, that Gene had to understand that she needed to really experience that there was a person there and that she was making an impact on that person that was him. If we see it as a dyadic something that they're focusing on, how would you put it, that the intersubjective mix here? You know what I mean? The two partners, if it was couples therapy, how would we say what the couple was dealing with? What is Gene dealing with? Maybe that's a better question first. Then we can say what the couple. So she's dealing with, she has to make an impact, and reflecting is highly suspect. She can't stand it. And what is he dealing with? What's his problem?
His impact, the impact is he wants to communicate that she is making an impact, but she isn't seeing that. She's she's resisting seeing that.
She's resisting seeing that, or I think he would probably see it not as she was resisting seeing that.
Resisting is not the word he would use, but
Right.
I'm trying to say it, you know, from a
The
different
way it,
standpoint. But I mean, just the fact that he stopped reflecting is an example of an impact, but that's not enough of an impact. And it doesn't count as an impact. He wanted it to count as an impact in a way that she would recognize it as an impact.
But is there a quality of trust that they need? They're working to be able to trust each other in a way.
Yes.
She trusting that he's really there, and he trusting that she will let him have his own way of being with her.
Yes. They were both trying to work at feeling that they could be themselves with each other. But let's go back to Gene. I mean, this is a big problem for him. What's the big problem?
He can't stop reflecting, and he has
right. I mean, he's the big reflecting. He is the reflector. The one that Carl Rogers, and not the only one, but the one that Carl Rogers has handed this amazing, miraculous, evocative listening tool of reflecting that I was saying is magic. And this is, Gene has this amazing thing and wants to develop a whole philosophy and everything around it. And this is his gift to the world. And she says, no, you can't have that with me. It would be like, I don't know, like working all your life as a woman to have this perfect body, slim and this and that and well-toned, and you're dating a man who can't stand skinny women. Something like that. No, I don't think that's a good analogy. But at any rate, he says, you know, I can't promise that I'm not going to reflect. It's so automatic for me. She wants him to not do the main thing that he does. And so how does he, so we have this intersubjective mix where she can't stand reflecting. He can't stop reflecting. They're trying to build a way of being together where they can build trust, right? And be together, make a relational home together. And how do they do it? And they're both working at it. It's not just Jean. She's working very hard to make a connection with him.
He seems very direct. A number of times he said, I got it. That he doesn't go further than that. I imagine he would have liked to or would have in another session, but not with her. That all he could do was acknowledge in an authentic way, I have received what you said, and it has impact.
Right.
He also said he intended to try not to reflect.
Yes. That was a wonderful moment in the infant research. People have studied what they call a now moment. And a now moment means the therapy and everything is weighing in the balance of a moment when the response of the therapist is so important that the whole thing could either blossom or collapse in that moment, right? And she says to him, can I trust you? She even uses her finger. Can I trust you on that? Right? Can I trust that you aren't going to reflect? And what does he say?
I can't promise that I won't, you know. So he's like trying to be real, because he would be disingenuous to say yes. It would be inauthentic, because it's just human, you know, he's being authentic there too, which I think is helpful. I can't promise, but I intend, you know, and isn't that the best any of us can do?
Yes. Let's go back to that principle of it's not the saying, but it's the doing in the saying, what we're doing. What is he doing there? When he says, I'm going to try, but I can't promise because it's so instinctual for me, but I don't intend to do it. What is he doing with his words? Yeah.
I'm having an image that she's inviting him to dance, a kind of dancing that he doesn't know at all. And what he's doing, I have a feeling in my body that he's really trying to do what she's kind of inviting him to do. And it's so like the awareness is moment by moment by moment, like sensing the direction. Is it this one?
Yes.
And
he's sensing, you can feel him sensing there what she's asking, what he's feeling, what they can do together. And he's sensing her almost desperate need to have him be authentic, to have him be a person. And
sorry.
Yes, go ahead, please.
And reinforced, she's having this, yes, now it's okay.
Right. She's
like,
really right. In that sense, Jim, she's not resisting. When he gets it, and he's showing her he gets it, she's so affirming, she's so happy. Yes, right.
Well, and he says, you can trust that I'm here, I'm present. You can't really, I don't know about a bigger sense of trust, but that he's findable.
Yes. And Steve, what were you going to say?
And he's findable, and there's a message that she's important enough for him to set that intention, to put something that he's brilliant at doing aside, and then he's person enough and present enough to say some version of, oops, I got into that. I can't promise that I won't. So he in a certain sense, it seems like he showed up in a fair amount of complexity of himself there.
Exactly, that he's doing the thing that she wants by saying that he can't promise not to do it.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's very beautiful. If he had said, yes, I won't reflect anymore, that wouldn't have been doing, would have been saying what she wanted, but wouldn't have been doing the thing that she needed. His being his authentic, real self there. And
I felt he was also, I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Steve.
I felt he was also very gently saying, I have to be authentic, and there's an us here too. I may reflect. That's not my intention. I hear what you're saying, but he wasn't absenting himself by just completely conforming to her demands.
Right. Well, she didn't want him to be absent. That was the whole, yes. And he could have absented himself to meet her demands. And then that on the deeper level would have been anti-therapeutic or something. But I wanted to catch that thing that he said about, you can trust me not to stay inside reflection. I love that. That is so beautiful. What does he mean by that? To stay inside reflection.
Well, that he could hide behind what he normally does with everyone.
Right, right, right.
It's like he's saying, I'm not going to put that in between us.
Yes, exactly. Right, right. It's a wonderful image. It's very evocative that there's the reflection technique, and he's not going to be inside it where she can't see him. Right? He wants to be visible. The reflection needs to be, and he's teaching us very profound lessons about what he means by reflection in this. Because at least to me, it seems he's teaching us how to reflect by not reflecting in the ordinary way. He's teaching us that reflecting is a much bigger thing. It's not saying back what the person has said, even saying it back poetically, although it is in moments there. But he's teaching us how to reflect by struggling to reflect in a different way, in a broader way. That little phrase where he said, "Oh, you would be, you feel like you are all alone over there, floating." That's a beautiful poetic way of reflecting back, right? This is what I get, that you feel all alone over there floating. But he says it in such a way that it's not a reflection. It's, this is, I'm with you. I see this. I see you. And I want you to see me seeing you. Ray, it looks like you have something to say. Maybe not. That hand motion looked like.
Oh, no. Well, I was thinking of Gosha's metaphor of the dance, and it just seems to me like they both agreed to attend the dance, and they were always together, and she was very much with him. She was very much telling him exactly what was going on, blah, 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 inside of her, and she was communicating it, and she was really staying with him. I didn't feel like it was resisting at all. It was like she was in the dance with him. She wanted to make that contact. She wanted to have something happen, and she was very much engaged. But thank you for asking. I wasn't going to say that, but that's my impression.
By resisting, since everybody hates the fact that I use that word, I mean, he was resisting trusting him until he kind of proved that he could be trusted.
Absolutely. She was testing him, right?
Well, and she's saying, I have this very specific way that I need to be met.
Mm-hmm.
And can you do that?
Yes. Can you meet me where I need to be met in this very real, immediate, present place? And even though on the surface, they're really at odds, needing opposite things, on a deeper level, on that implicit level, they're together. They both want that. That's what he wants too.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Lynn. That's exactly what I meant. The deeper point was really going on. It was like a real desire for it to happen, what happened. Yeah, on both their parts. Yeah.
Jim, I feel like definitely I had, like, I don't know if it wasn't hate, but kind of a reaction to, like, saying her resistance, because I think traditionally it's had such a not pathologized, negative sort of spin on it. Doesn't get underneath that. Let's say on one level it's like she's resisting, and it's like, because on the other level maybe she's like desperate, as Lynn said, to have to get her need met, to what Jeffrey said, like, and she's like finally like, I'm gonna go for it here. And it does look like resistance, but it's so positive. Like she's really standing up for her need. So I didn't hate that. I don't know. I don't know if anyone here hated it, but it definitely evoked kind of like a knee jerk.
I'll bet there's somebody here who hated it. Raise your hand if you're the one who hated it.
We can have a demo here of just like I can't stand reflection. I can't stand the word
Resistance. Parallel process. There you go.
Yeah.
But it's a
mean,
good word, because I was resisting. When I said I'd find her difficult, I realized I was resisting joining her, but I enjoyed seeing part 1 and 2. And midway through part 1, I was no longer resisting. I could experience her in a different way, but I had to overcome my
your
who the hell
resistance.
needs this kind of confrontation? And
Yes.
yeah, well, I have to, because I'm the therapist.
It's you, babe, right?
Yeah, right, exactly. So resistance was very helpful because it was mine.
There you go. That's
I think it has a negative connotation to the people who are familiar with the old psychoanalysis, where all the problems were seen as the patient's resistance. But of course, Jim isn't coming from that place. Right. But there's also, even in the traditional psychoanalysis, the concept of the positive intentionality of the resistance. That there's some life force in the resistance. Let's look at some of these questions that I sort of designed for you and see if they add anything to this discussion. We talked about what is the something that they were focusing on. What does Genlin? Oh, this is one that I'd love to hear you answer. What does Genlin replace reflecting with? When he can't reflect, what does he do? He gets to the same thing. I love this. It's like a game of chess. He gets to the same thing in a different way. What is the different ways? What does he use? This is all so helpful for us, because you can't use reflection with everybody. I have a number of, maybe most of my clients that I can't reflect with.
I love that question when I read it over. He uses self-disclosure a lot, for one thing.
Yes. What I call expressive relating. And he uses it so freely and easily. He says, I get this. I was thinking of this other thing, but I won't tell you now. And then she says she's intrigued with it. He says, I really got it. I really understand that. I intend, there's so many. It would be wonderful if somebody would make a list of all of the I statements that Jean uses in this 3-minute clip. I'd be very curious about how many I statements there are. How does he manage to make the you statement and keep his promise not to reflect? He simply, and that's so simple, makes the reflection into a question. And we're back to the psychoanalytic way of asking questions and interpretation. That's also an interpretation. You're feeling all alone. And he can get to the same place with a question as with a reflection. What do you notice in the body language? I mean, we would need to have time to really play this again and just look at the body language. It would be very interesting. Maybe as homework, you could play this 3-minute clip again and turn the sound off and just see what you see in the body language.
You know, when she's saying you, she's poking him, but it's a contactful poke. It's not poking him.
Right.
She's saying, oh,
Yes.
I can feel you. Her gestures are a poke, but it's a matter of a contact. Oh my God, you're really there. And he's saying, well, whatever I am doing or not doing, I can say that my intention, I'm here.
Right.
And but it's her body language is of a poke, but you have to understand the kind of poke to really be able to be with her.
Right. Right.
I love that. A contactful poke. That's fantastic. I love it.
Yeah, that becomes a term, doesn't it?
Yeah.
A contactful poke.
It's great.
There's a great deal of debate about how much confrontation should we have in therapy, and confrontation can be aggressive, or it can be a contactful poke. You know, it can be a lot of things. So we'll eventually have a class about confrontation.
Well, there's two. There's what are the little steps?
Uh-huh.
And can you say something about transference?
Yeah. What were the little steps? I mean, if you went through the whole demo, there was so many steps. But if we just take the 3 minutes, I mean, just even naming one little step. What was a step? Just the whole idea is quite original in a way, or unique to experiential therapy, that change happens in these little steps.
I don't know if this is a step or not, but when she initially says, I hate reflections, and he takes that in. He doesn't jump backwards in his chair, you know, he receives it.
Mm-hmm. And that becomes a name of something, which is often a step when you can find a name for something. The I hate reflection.
And he attempts again and again. He is trying to be congruent with what she's trying to put into words that she needs. And he shifts and shifts and shifts toward congruency with what she's trying to let him know.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Each step is like if they're dance partners, and he's the dance teacher. When I was a young girl, I went to Arthur Murray's to learn dancing because I didn't know anything about moving, and that way that the dance teacher has to be so attuned to your body, and these little movements that help you to move together. Little movements of congruence. It seemed to me that there was a big step actually when she confronted him and said, "Can I trust you on this?" And then his response, and then she said, "I like this. I like that." What did you make of his always carrying what she did a little further? Did you notice that? He wouldn't just stop there and let the thing die. He would carry it further. So when she said, "I like that," he said, "Well, I take by what you mean that it was good. No, it was when he said, it makes me think of the opposite. And she said, oh, I'm intrigued. And he said, well, that makes me think it was something good that I did. And there's something like a little playful, there's always the edge of a bit of playfulness that the two of them are playing together.
Mhm.
And his taking it a little further to see what next step would come from liking it. Notice that when he says, I'll tell you later, she doesn't insist on hearing it now. She goes back to their theme, to the something, and says, I know you're there because you're thinking of something and you got me interested.
It seems he had many ways of saying yes and, but he didn't use those exact words, but always
Exactly.
yes and then she joins in that momentum. It's he suggests we can move forward, and she goes right along, but he phrases it, but it's still a yes and.
It's a
But-
yes and, yes. Yeah, we need to talk more about improvisation and the yes and principle rather than yes but. And then we only have a few more minutes, but what do you imagine about the transference here? I know that you psychoanalysts in the group are sensing into the transference, right, Jim?
I only have one word, nurturance, what you had been talking about, that the transference is, I can't always provide the nurturance and everything will be fine, but he's very much trying to connect to her need and see if he can't nurture that into an awareness.
It's true. So that would be what we would call in self-psychology a self-object transference, how he's trying to meet her primary needs for nurturing. I was using the word more in the traditional way, like what he's representing for her. What is she playing out with him? It's not just, oh, here I am, I'm going to do a demo with this guy, with this sort of famous guy. She's playing something out. It's larger than life. What is he representing for her? What is she needing him to be for her?
Someone who sees her.
Someone who sees her. Yes. That was beautifully said, right? That she expresses she wasn't seen by her mother. And she needs to know that somebody, this parent person, because of course, when you're in the role of the therapist, especially if you're doing a demo and you're sort of this famous therapist, you are in the role of representing this parent, the parent of the universe, representing the one, right? The possibility. She needs to prod and poke and see, can this one see her, recognize her, or will she be invisible again? It's what Stephen Mitchell talks about, and Anna Ornstein also, the interweaving of the hope for a new beginning and the dread to repeat. And you can really see that just in those 3 minutes. She hopes maybe this parent who would represent the possibilities in the universe could see her. And she dreads that it will be the same old thing where she's thrown back on herself and she's all alone. and misunderstood. Anything else? Anything else? We're going to have to stop about the transference, what he's representing. How would you say that or see that? I want you to begin to, or maybe many years you have been thinking in terms of what is being represented. We might ask, because transference is always two ways, what might she be representing for Jean? That's not quite as obvious. We don't really know. My inner Jean, which is very different than Jean, but my inner Jean, she's representing the challenge to put his money where his mouth is, that she's representing his struggle to be authentic and watch the road at the same time, and his sort of investment in proving to the universe, to the world, that reflection isn't a mechanistic, rote thing. So that's my fantasy of what she might represent for him.